Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a marketing manager for a tech startup here in Seattle, and honestly, I love my job. At 32, I'm single by choice, building my career, and I actually enjoy my independence. But Christmas 2023, that was the day my own parents taught me that being single apparently makes you the family's unpaid babysitter. Let me ask you something. What would you do if your family treated you like their personal convenience store? Always open, always available, never asking for anything in return? It was December 23rd, and I was genuinely excited about Christmas for the first time in years. I'd spent weeks planning everything perfectly. I'd bought thoughtful gifts for everyone: a cashmere scarf for mom that I'd seen her admiring at Nordstrom, a leather wallet for dad that matched his favorite jacket, and special toys for my three nephews: 6-year-old Tyler, 4-year-old Mason, and 2-year-old Jake. My sister Emma's kids meant the world to me, and I'd even gotten Emma this beautiful jewelry box she'd been wanting. I'd made dinner reservations at Romano's, this upscale Italian place downtown that mom had mentioned wanting to try. The reservation was for 8 people: my parents, Emma and her husband Mark, the 3 boys, and me. I'd even booked a suite at the Fairmont for the family so we could all stay together and make it a real Christmas celebration. This was going to be our year, the year we'd finally have that perfect family Christmas I'd been dreaming about. That morning, I spent 3 hours getting ready. I wore this gorgeous emerald green dress that brought out my eyes, and I'd had my hair done at the salon the day before. I felt beautiful, confident, ready to celebrate with the people I loved most. I loaded my car with perfectly wrapped presents. I'm talking department store level wrapping with matching ribbons and bows. Everything had to be perfect. The drive to my parents' house in Bellevue usually takes 45 minutes, but I left early because I wanted to help mom with any last-minute preparations. Their house is this beautiful colonial with white columns and a circular driveway. Mom always decorates it like something out of a magazine for Christmas, with garlands wrapped around every column and twinkling lights outlining the roofline. But when I pulled into the driveway at 4 p.m., something felt off immediately. The house looked empty. No cars in the driveway except for Dad's old Honda that he keeps for emergencies. No warm glow from the windows. No sounds of family gathering. Just silence. I grabbed my gifts and walked up to the front door, expecting to hear laughter and Christmas music. Instead, I heard crying. Not adult crying. Children crying. Multiple children crying. My heart started racing as I fumbled for the spare key under the decorative rock by the door. The moment I opened the door, chaos hit me like a physical force. Tyler was sobbing on the living room floor, surrounded by what looked like the contents of an entire cereal box. Mason was standing in the middle of the kitchen wearing only a diaper and a t-shirt, screaming at the top of his lungs. And little Jake? He was sitting in his high chair, face red from crying, with what appeared to be spaghetti sauce smeared not just on his face, but on the walls, the floor, and somehow even on the ceiling. "Tyler," I called out, dropping my gifts by the door and rushing toward him. "Sweetie, what's wrong? Where's Grandma and Grandpa?" Tyler looked up at me with those big brown eyes, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Aunt Sarah, Mommy and Daddy left us here and nobody came back. We're hungry and Jake is stinky and Mason won't stop crying." My stomach dropped. Left them here? Where was everyone? I quickly scooped up Jake from his high chair. He definitely needed a diaper change, while trying to calm Mason down. That's when I noticed the note on the kitchen counter, written in Mom's handwriting. "Sarah, emergency came up. Watch the boys. Be back soon." Mom, be back soon? What emergency? And where was Emma? Where was Mark? This was supposed to be our family Christmas dinner. I was trying to process this information while simultaneously changing Jake's diaper, which was honestly a disaster zone, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Mom, and I felt a wave of relief. Finally, I'd get some answers. "Mom, thank God. Where is everyone? The boys are here alone and they're— Surprise!" Mom's voice was so loud and cheerful that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. In the background, I could hear what sounded like tropical music. "We're calling from the beautiful beaches of Maui." The world stopped. "You're— what?" "We're in Hawaii, sweetheart. Emma and Mark, too." we decided to give you the most meaningful Christmas gift we could think of, the experience of taking care of children. You're always saying how much you love the boys, and since you're single and don't have any real responsibilities this week, we thought this would be perfect for you. I stood there in my parents' kitchen, holding a squirming 2-year-old who had spaghetti sauce in his hair, listening to my mother explain how abandoning 3 children was somehow a gift to me. The sound of waves and laughter in the background made it even more surreal. Mom, you can't be serious. You left 3 children alone in the house and flew to Hawaii? Oh, don't be so dramatic, Sarah. They weren't alone, they had each other. And we knew you'd be there soon. Besides, this is exactly what you need. Some real-world experience with kids. Maybe it'll help you understand what you're missing by staying single. There it was. The real reason. This wasn't about giving me a gift or helping with the children. This was about their disappointment in my life choices, wrapped up in a bow and presented as generosity. How long are you planning to be gone? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady while Tyler tugged on my dress, asking for juice. Oh, just until New Year's. It's a wonderful package deal Emma found. 10 days in paradise. You'll have such a bonding experience with the boys. Think of it as practice for when you finally settle down and have your own family. 10 days. They'd left 3 small children for 10 days and flown to Hawaii without telling me, without asking me, without even considering that I might have my own plans. What about the dinner reservation? What about Christmas morning? I planned everything, Mom. Oh, honey, that was so sweet of you, but this is so much better. The boys will love having Christmas with their favorite aunt. You can make new traditions. We have to go now. Mark's ordering another round of Mai Tais. Love you. And she hung up. I stood there staring at my phone, listening to the dial tone, while Jake pulled on my earrings and Mason continued crying in the background. The beautiful Christmas dress I'd picked out so carefully was already stained with baby food. My perfectly styled hair was coming undone. And the family celebration I'd planned and paid for? Apparently, it had been replaced with an unpaid babysitting gig that I'd never agreed to. But here's the thing about moments like these, they clarify everything. As I looked around at the chaos, at the mess, at 3 little boys who had been abandoned by the adults who were supposed to care for them, I realized something important. This wasn't just about me being inconvenienced. This was about a pattern that had been going on for years. I thought about all the times I'd been the one to help out when Emma needed a babysitter. All the times I'd been expected to contribute more to family gifts because you don't have kids, so you have more disposable income. All the times my achievements had been dismissed because they didn't include a husband and children. All the times I'd been treated like the family backup plan. Always available, never having anything important enough to interfere with their needs. As I picked up Tyler and carried him to the kitchen to find him something to eat. As I mentally calculated how much formula and diapers we'd need for 10 days. As I realized I'd have to cancel my own New Year's plans and probably take time off work, something crystallized in my mind. They'd given me a gift all right, but it wasn't the gift of childcare experience. It was the gift of absolute clarity about exactly who they thought I was and who I was no longer willing to be. Tyler looked up at me as I poured him a cup of juice, his tears finally stopping. Aunt Sarah, are you mad? I smoothed his hair back from his forehead and managed a smile. No, sweetheart. Aunt Sarah isn't mad at you, but you know what? I think it's time I gave Grandma and Grandpa a Christmas gift, too. A very special one they'll never forget. Because nothing says Merry Christmas quite like a call to the authorities about 3 young children who've been abandoned during the holidays. And trust me, that call was going to be my gift to them. One they'd be opening a lot sooner than they expected. After I got the boys settled that first night, which involved 2 diaper changes, 3 bedtime stories, and convincing Mason that monsters don't live in Grandma's guest room, I sat down at my parents' kitchen table and really thought about what had happened. The more I replayed that phone call, the more I realized I needed to document everything. Not just for my own sanity, but because something about this whole situation felt deeply wrong. I started by writing down every detail I could remember from the day, timestamping everything. Then I did something I'd never done before. I set up my phone to record the next conversation with my parents. I needed proof of what they were actually saying because I had a feeling they'd try to rewrite history later. The next morning, while the boys were eating breakfast, Well, Tyler was eating, Mason was painting his face with syrup, and Jake was throwing Cheerios at the floor. I called my parents back. This time, I hit record first. "Oh, Sarah, how are my grandbabies doing?" Mom's voice was still that artificially cheerful tone, with what sounded like ocean waves in the background. "Mom, I need to understand something. Did you plan this Hawaii trip before or after you invited me to Christmas dinner?" There was a pause. Then Dad's voice came on the line. "Sarah, honey, what does it matter? You're having a wonderful time with the boys, aren't you?" "Dad, I'm asking a simple question. When did you book this trip?" "Well, Emma found this fantastic last-minute deal a few weeks ago, and we thought—" "A few weeks ago?" I repeated, making sure it was clear on the recording. "So you've known for weeks that you'd be in Hawaii for Christmas, but you let me plan and pay for dinner reservations for 8 people?" "Now, Sarah, don't get upset. We were going to reimburse you." "Were you?" "Because Emma just posted a photo on Instagram of you all at some expensive resort restaurant, and the caption says, 'Planned this surprise family getaway months ago.'" "Months, Dad, not weeks." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Mom came back on the line, and her voice had lost some of that fake cheer. "Sarah, I don't appreciate your tone. We gave you a wonderful opportunity to spend quality time with the children." "An opportunity?" "Mom, you abandoned 3 children without asking me if I was available or willing to care for them. What if I hadn't shown up? What if I'd been out of town?" "But you weren't, were you? You never go anywhere during the holidays. You don't have anyone to spend them with." And there it was, recorded for posterity. The casual cruelty wrapped in assumed availability. That afternoon, while Jake was napping and the older boys were watching a movie, I decided to do some investigating. I started by calling my parents' neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She'd lived next door for 15 years and had always been friendly with my family. "Oh, Sarah, I was wondering when you'd arrive. Your parents asked me to keep an eye on the house while they were gone." "When did they ask you that, Mrs. Chen?" "Oh, it must have been 2 weeks ago. Your mother was so excited about the trip. She said they'd been planning it since October as a surprise for Emma's birthday. Such a lovely gesture, taking the whole family to Hawaii." October. They'd been planning this since October, and they'd let me spend December preparing for a Christmas dinner they knew they wouldn't attend. "Mrs. Chen, did my parents mention anything about the children staying here?" "The children? Oh my, no. I assumed they were all going together. When I saw those little ones crying through the window yesterday, I almost called the police myself. I thought there might have been an emergency." My blood ran cold. "You saw them crying through the window?" "Oh yes, before you arrived. The oldest boy, Tyler, I think. He was standing on a chair trying to reach something in the kitchen cabinet, and the baby was screaming in his high chair. I was just about to go over when I saw your car pull up." So Mrs. Chen had witnessed that the children were unsupervised and distressed. That was important. My next call was to Emma's best friend, Jessica. Emma and Jessica had been friends since college, and Jessica had always been surprisingly honest about family dynamics. "Sarah, how are you surviving babysitting duty?" Jessica laughed, but there was something awkward in her voice. "So you knew about this plan?" "Well, Emma mentioned it a few weeks ago. She was stressed about finding childcare for the Hawaii trip, and your mom suggested just having you watch them at your parents' house. Emma wasn't sure about it, but your mom insisted it would be fine." "Jessica, did Emma try to ask me directly?" Another pause. "She said she was going to, but then your mom said she'd handle it and that it would be a nice surprise for you. Emma was worried you might say no if you knew in advance." "Of course. They knew I would have said no to 10 days of unpaid childcare during my vacation time, so they simply didn't ask." "Jessica, can you tell me exactly when they booked this trip?" "October 15th. I remember because Emma called me right after they got the confirmation. She was so excited but stressed about the kids' situation." October 15th. I had the date now, and I had witnesses. That evening, after I'd managed to get all 3 boys bathed and in bed, a process that involved more water on the bathroom floor than in the tub, I started looking through my parents' paperwork. I wasn't snooping exactly. I was looking for emergency contact information in case something happened with the kids, but what I found was much more interesting. In Dad's desk drawer, I found the travel confirmation emails. The trip had been booked on October 12th, Not the 15th like Emma thought, but even earlier. The total cost was $18,000 for 5 people for 10 days. $18,000. That was more than I made in 3 months. But here's what really got to me. In the same folder, I found a printed email thread between my parents and Emma from November. The subject line was Sarah situation. Mom had written, "Don't worry about asking Sarah directly. She'll just make a big fuss about her plans and boundaries. Better to present it as a done deal. She never has anything important going on during holidays anyway." Emma had replied, "Are you sure? She seemed really excited about hosting Christmas dinner this year." Dad had responded, "Emma, your sister needs to learn that family comes first. This will be good for her. Maybe spending time with children will help her understand what she's missing." I sat there in my father's study, reading emails about how my own family had conspired to manipulate me, and I felt something shift inside my chest. This wasn't just thoughtlessness or poor planning. This was calculated. They had deliberately deceived me, dismissed my autonomy, and abandoned 3 children because they assumed I was so pathetic and lonely that I'd be grateful for the imposition. The next morning, I made 2 more important phone calls. First, I called my boss and explained the situation. Karen had always been understanding, but I needed this conversation documented too. "Sarah, are you telling me your family left 3 children with you for 10 days without any advance notice?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." "And they flew to Hawaii?" "Currently sipping Mai Tais in Maui, according to their Instagram stories." "Sarah, you know you don't have to do this, right? This isn't your responsibility." "I know, but I can't abandon the children just because their parents and grandparents did." "Do you need me to contact anyone? This sounds like it might be a legal issue." That was exactly what I'd been thinking. My second call was to my college roommate Lisa, who was now a family lawyer in Portland. "Lisa, I need some legal advice. If someone leaves children with you without consent and then leaves the state, what are the legal implications?" "Sarah, please tell me you're not asking this about your own situation." I explained everything to Lisa, and there was a long silence before she responded. "Sarah, what your family did could potentially be considered child abandonment. The fact that they left the state without making proper arrangements, without getting your consent, and without leaving adequate supplies or emergency information, this is serious. What should I do?" "Document everything. Keep those recordings, those emails, get witness statements. And Sarah, you might want to call Child Protective Services." "CPS, but I don't want the kids taken away from Emma permanently." "You're not calling to get the kids removed from their mother. You're calling to report that children were abandoned without proper care arrangements. CPS needs to know this happened so they can investigate and make sure it doesn't happen again." That afternoon, while the boys were having quiet time, I called CPS. The intake worker, Mrs. Rodriguez, listened to my story with growing concern. "Ms. Thompson, you're telling me that 3 children, ages 2, 4, and 6, were left alone in a house while their parents and grandparents flew to Hawaii?" "That's correct." "And no one asked for your consent to care for these children?" "No one. I discovered them when I arrived for what I thought was a family Christmas dinner." "How long are the parents planning to be gone?" 10 days total." "And what provisions were made for food, diapers, medical emergencies?" I looked around the kitchen where I'd had to buy groceries with my own money because there wasn't enough food in the house for 3 children for more than a day. "None. I've had to purchase everything myself." "Ms. Thompson, I need to open a case file. This constitutes child abandonment and we'll need to investigate. Can you provide me with the contact information for the parents and grandparents?" When I hung up from that call, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Not the kind of power that comes from controlling other people, but the kind that comes from refusing to be controlled. 2 days later, my parents called again. This time, their tone was different. "Sarah, we just got a very disturbing call from someone claiming to be from Child Protective Services," Dad said, his voice tight with anger. "Really? How strange," I replied, stirring Jake's baby food, while Tyler colored at the kitchen table. "They said someone reported us for child abandonment. Do you know anything about this?" "Well, Dad, I suppose it depends on how you define abandonment. Would you say leaving 3 young children alone in a house while you fly to another state, without arranging proper care qualifies? Sarah Elizabeth Thompson, you did not call CPS on your own family. Actually, I did. And I provided them with recordings of our conversations, witness statements from neighbors who saw the children in distress, and documentation showing you planned this trip months ago while letting me believe we were having Christmas dinner together. The silence that followed was so long I thought they might have hung up. Finally, Mom came on the line and her voice was shaking. Sarah, how could you do this to us? We're your parents. And Tyler, Mason, and Jake are your grandchildren. Did you consider them when you decided to fly to Hawaii? We left them with family. You abandoned them and assumed I'd clean up your mess, just like you always do. You're being ridiculous. Family helps family. You're right, Mom. Family does help family. But this isn't help. This is exploitation. And it ends now. What do you mean it ends now? I looked around the kitchen where I'd been living for a week, caring for 3 children who weren't my responsibility, spending my own money on their needs, using my vacation time to cover for my family's selfishness. I mean, I'm done being your backup plan. I'm done being the person you call when you need something but ignore when you're making plans. I'm done pretending that my life and my choices don't matter because I'm single. Sarah, you're overreacting. When we get home, we'll sit down and talk about this like adults. No, Mom. When you get home, you'll be talking to CPS investigators like adults. You'll be explaining to social workers why you thought it was appropriate to abandon 3 small children, and you'll be doing it without my help. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. That night, as I was putting the boys to bed, Tyler asked me a question that broke my heart. Aunt Sarah, are Mommy and Daddy coming back? I sat down on his bed and smoothed his hair back. Of course they are, sweetheart. They'll be back soon. But what if they forget about us like Grandma and Grandpa did? And that's when I realized that this wasn't just about me anymore. These 3 little boys had been abandoned too, and they were old enough to understand it. They'd been treated like inconveniences by the very people who were supposed to protect them. Tyler, I need you to listen to me very carefully. What happened to you boys was not okay. Grown-ups are supposed to take care of children, not leave them alone. That's why I called some people whose job it is to make sure children are safe. Are we in trouble? No, baby, you're not in trouble. You didn't do anything wrong. The grown-ups who left you are the ones who made bad choices. The next morning, Emma called for the first time since they'd left. Sarah, what the hell is going on? Mom called me crying saying you called CPS on us? Emma, where are your children right now? They're with you. And where are you? I'm in Hawaii, but you're in Hawaii and your children are with me. Someone you never asked to watch them. For 10 days, during Christmas. Do you see the problem here? Sarah, I thought you'd enjoy spending time with them. Enjoy? Emma? Jake had a fever 2 nights ago. I had to take him to urgent care by myself because I don't have his medical information, his insurance cards, or even his pediatrician's name. The doctor asked me if I was his guardian, and I had to explain that his parents abandoned him with me and flew to Hawaii. We didn't abandon them. We left them with family. Did you ask me? Did you confirm I was available? Did you leave emergency contacts, medical information, or enough supplies? Silence. Emma, your 6-year-old asked me if you were coming back because you forgot about them like Grandma and Grandpa did. Do you understand what you've done to your own children? When she started crying, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I wanted to ask you directly, but Mom said she'd handle it. She said you'd be happy to help. And when you realized she hadn't actually asked me, what did you do? I thought maybe it would be okay. You don't have kids, so I thought maybe you wouldn't mind. There it was again. The assumption that my life was empty and available for their convenience. Emma, I'm going to say this once, and I need you to really hear me. I love your children. I would do anything to protect them. But I will never again allow you or anyone else in this family to treat me like your personal safety net. When you get home, you need to pick up your children and figure out your own childcare. I'm done. Sarah, please don't do this. We're family. Yes, we are. And it's time this family learned to treat me like I matter. On December 30th, my parents came home 3 days early. Not because they were concerned about their grandchildren. but because CPS had told them they needed to return immediately for interviews. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard their car in the driveway. Tyler ran to the window, excited to see them, but I felt nothing but cold resolve. They walked in like they owned the place, which technically they did. But their expressions weren't the carefree, tanned faces I'd expected. They looked tired, stressed, and angry. "Sarah, we need to talk," Dad said without even acknowledging the children who were running toward him. "Actually, we don't. Your grandchildren need to talk to you. They have questions about why you left them." "Don't be dramatic." "Dramatic?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Dad, I've spent the last week being a single mother to 3 children while working my full-time job remotely and dealing with medical emergencies, all because you decided my life was less important than your vacation. If anyone's being dramatic, it's not me." Mom tried to hug Tyler, but he pulled away. "Grandma, why did you leave us? Aunt Sarah said you went on a trip without telling her." And that's when I saw it. The moment my mother realized that her grandchildren knew they'd been abandoned. "Tyler, sweetie, we just needed a little vacation. We knew Aunt Sarah would take good care of you." But Aunt Sarah was sad. She cried when Jake was sick. My mother's face went white. She looked at me, and for the first time in my adult life, I saw something that might have been shame in her eyes. But it was too little, too late. The CPS interview was scheduled for January 2nd. I wouldn't be there, I'd already given my statement, but I'd provided them with everything: the recordings, the emails, the witness statements, the medical records from Jake's urgent care visit. On New Year's Eve, as Emma and Mark finally came to pick up their children, Emma tried one more time to make this my fault. "Sarah, I hope you're happy. CPS is opening a case file on us. Do you know what this could do to Mark's security clearance? To my job?" I was sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by the Christmas stockings I'd hand-sewn for everyone, before this nightmare began. Each one had a name, carefully embroidered in gold thread. Mom, Dad, Emma, Mark, Tyler, Mason, Jake, Sarah. I'd spent hours on these stockings, weeks planning a perfect Christmas, months saving money for gifts and dinner reservations. I'd poured love and effort into creating something beautiful for my family, and they'd thrown it all away for a vacation they could have taken any other time of the year. I picked up my stocking, the one with Sarah in careful gold letters, and looked at my sister. "Emma, I hope you learned something from this. I hope you learned that actions have consequences. I hope you learned that other people's lives matter too. And I hope you learn to ask before you make assumptions about what other people owe you." I stood up and walked to the fireplace, where my parents had hung all the other stockings. One by one, I took them down. Mom's stocking, Dad's stocking, Emma's stocking, Mark's stocking. "What are you doing?" Emma asked. "I'm taking back what's mine," I said, folding each stocking carefully and putting them in my bag. "These stockings represent hours of work, love, and hope for a family Christmas that you all decided wasn't worth showing up for. I'm keeping them as a reminder." A reminder of what? I looked around the kitchen where I'd spent the last week caring for children who weren't my responsibility, cleaning up messes I didn't make, and learning exactly how little my family valued me. A reminder that I deserve better, that I'm not your backup plan anymore, that my life has value even if it doesn't look like yours. I left the boys' stockings on the mantel. They were innocent in all this, but I took the rest. As I walked toward the door with my bags, Tyler ran up to me. "Aunt Sarah, are you leaving forever?" I knelt down and looked into his sweet face. "No, Tyler, I'm not leaving forever. But things are going to be different now. Aunt Sarah is going to have better boundaries, which means I'll only spend time with people who treat me with respect." "What's boundaries?" "Boundaries are when you tell people what's okay and what's not okay. And leaving little boys alone while you go on vacation? That's not okay." As I drove away from my parents' house that night, I realized something important. For the first time in my adult life, I felt free. Free from the expectation that I'd always be available. Free from the assumption that my life mattered less because I was single. Free from the role of family caretaker that I'd never actually agreed to play. I wasn't the same Sarah who'd walked into that house a week ago, excited about Christmas dinner and eager to please. That Sarah was gone, and in her place was someone stronger, someone who knew her worth, someone who wouldn't be taken advantage of again. The next morning, New Year's Day, I did something I'd never done before. I made plans for myself without considering anyone else's needs or opinions. I booked a solo trip to New York for the following weekend, just because I wanted to see the city in winter. I bought a beautiful new dress online, just because it made me happy. I called my friend Michelle and made dinner plans, just because I wanted to see her. For 32 years, I'd been the good daughter, the helpful sister, the available aunt. I'd put everyone else's needs before my own and called it love. But now I understood the difference between love and exploitation. Love asks, love considers, love respects boundaries. What my family had done wasn't love, it was convenience. And I was done being convenient. When the final CPS report was filed 3 weeks later, it concluded that while no permanent harm had been done to the children, the parents and grandparents had exercised extremely poor judgment and failed to ensure proper care arrangements. Emma and Mark were required to complete parenting classes, and my parents received an official warning. But the real change wasn't in any official report. It was in me. I'd learned that I could say no. I'd learned that my life had value. I'd learned that family doesn't get to treat you badly just because they're family. And most importantly, I'd learned that sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the natural consequences of their own choices. My parents got exactly what they gave: abandonment during the holidays. The only difference was they deserved it.